Hi, this is Vaughn and Jen. This is one of our first videos for the following 9 months. We're excited that we'll be expecting our third child soon, and we thought what a great opportunity to share with you all the ups and downs of pregnancy, the decisions that you have to make, and hopefully walk some of you moms through some of those decisions and give you our thoughts and some alternatives naturally that can help you along your way. So today we're just getting started at the beginning, of course, talking about the first trimester, which we've just completed. I'm just finishing up the first trimester, so very familiar with it and know it very well.
The third time.
Yep. So we'll be talking about that in the video and talking about some of the things I encountered, some of the things you probably have encountered, and some of the reasons why your body is feeling that way. But before we even get there, we just felt that maybe we just need to even start at the beginning of the beginning. So you probably find out that you're pregnant and you're excited, and what's the first question that goes through your mind? Who's going to deliver my baby?
Exactly.
Yeah, so deciding on your practitioner is a big decision, and it really impacts a lot. It impacts how your prenatal care will look like, it impacts where your delivery will look like, and it will very much impact the entrance of your baby into the world and their first experience into the world. So choosing your practitioner is a big decision, and we have chosen the same every time, and we'll probably continue to do that. So you really have a couple choices, but really the main driving question that will help you decide who will be your practitioner is the main question that we have to ask ourselves all the time. Every time we've asked ourselves, where do we want to have our baby? And for us, every time it's been at home. But you have 3 options to consider where you might have your baby. So you can choose to have your baby at home, as we did. You can also choose to have it at a birth center. And then your third option would be the hospital. And so there's kind of pros and cons to all 3, and everybody has to choose what's right for them. What will drive kind of your decision for a practitioner once you decide where you want to have your baby. If you choose to have your baby at home or in the birth center, then most likely you're going to be going with a midwife. If you're going to be choosing to have your baby in a hospital, then you have most times you will choose to have a doctor, but sometimes you can have a midwife that has hospital privileges. Midwives, the pros of midwives is that they tend to be very natural. They believe in the body, that the body has been designed, that this is not a medical emergency. They trust the body. This is a practice that goes back generations and generations, and so most women were giving birth from midwives in their homes for years and years and years and years and years from the very beginning. So I would say, obviously the pros of having a midwife is that you're going to experience in your prenatal care really a lot of natural alternatives. There's going to be less pressure on testing. There's a lot of testing you can do during your pregnancy. A lot of times they want to start ultrasounds right at the beginning in a hospital. You can choose to delay an ultrasound if you'd like. You can, you don't have to do all the genetic testing that's out there that is available to you. Some of that, I believe, causes a lot of more fear, really, and anxiety around this potential test that may or may not be completely accurate on the health of your baby. And I just think that, sometimes it's good to just trust the body. Let the body tell you signs if something's going on. Midwives do an amazing job of following mom and following the baby. And if they feel that anything's out of the normal, they'll definitely do anything to follow up and look deeper into that. But sometimes if you get into the medical model, there's a lot of boxes that need to be checked along the way. And you'll find yourself going kind of through the gamut of things that maybe aren't really necessary for you.
We actually did a video on why we chose a home birth, and we wrote a couple birth stories on our website, and so you can check out that other information with a lot more information on why, we've chosen home births in the past. And
Absolutely, and I think you'll
what
get a
we
lot
saw
out
the
of
pros
that.
and cons.
Absolutely. So then the next thing that we want to talk about during the video today is really let's focus on what happens during the first trimester. So some of the main symptoms that you're experiencing in your first trimester can be nausea, vomiting, sick, just a constant kind of food aversions. Nothing looks good to you. Smells are bothering you. All of a sudden, that that chicken soup that maybe you made every day starts smelling kind of not so great, or even body odors can bother you, or perfumes that you've worn all this time all of a sudden are strikingly bothering you, and you might start wondering what's going on. Right about that time you might find that you found out you're pregnant. You're like, okay, this is starting to make sense, because you hear all the stories, and in our culture we've pretty much started to take those as the norm in pregnancy. A lot of times we also experience cravings for foods that maybe we know aren't healthy for us, or foods that we haven't had in years, and all of a sudden they look amazing and you're just ready to go for it, and even though you know that it's full of things you shouldn't be eating for your baby, you just dive right in. And so cravings are another big thing. I would say the third main category, other than the nausea, food aversions, and kind of that overall sicky feeling, and the cravings, would be fatigue. And I would say fatigue has been probably my biggest challenge for all of my first trimesters. And we'll talk a little bit more about why women are deeply fatigued in their first trimester, and ways that you can support your energy. So why don't we just start at the first one? Let's talk about the nausea, the morning sickness. It's kind of funny they call it morning sickness, because
Where did that come from?
I feel like it can happen at any time of the day, not just morning. But I think I might know why, and we'll talk about that. So Vaughn, why don't you tell us one of the things that's happening in the body, and maybe talk about the role of a vital organ, and how it relates to pregnancy, and why it might relate to some of these symptoms.
I think one thing that we've really learned, and we've actually shared a lot in videos in the past, or I've shared as an example, kind of some of the differences between our first and second pregnancies related to Jin's health specifically. And there was quite a bit of difference between how Jin felt specifically between those two pregnancies, and mainly because of our understanding of the liver and the role that the liver plays. And one thing we try to really help women and couples understand is the role of the liver in health and in pregnancy. What we see as normal, like Jin said, morning sickness, nausea, food aversions, it's actually signs and symptoms of a congested liver. Now, why that's so crucial to understand is if you don't know that, or you don't understand that, you just say, well, it's pregnancy, that's just the way it is, and you just push through. And you have no idea what to do, you have no solutions, you think that that's just life, and you suffer every day for how long? Just because you just believe that that's the way it's supposed to be. And the truth is that's not how it's supposed to be. And it's interesting, our cultures, this has been going on for so long, that our culture will almost tell people or women that there's something wrong with you if you don't have morning sickness and nausea and food aversions and some of these symptoms. So it's actually the liver and all the increased, I always say, like, pregnancy exposes your weaknesses, just like fasting can expose people's weaknesses. And when you're pregnant, the body has to really increase blood volume to prepare for this new baby, to build this embryonic fluid, to build the baby. And so that creates a lot of extra pressure on the liver, and if the liver is already taxed or compromised, you're going to suffer symptoms of that. What's really cool about God's creation and design is that He is allowing this to happen to actually protect mom and to protect the baby. So in other words, the liver's congested, it's having to deal with all this extra load and pressure, and the last thing it wants is for you to eat a bunch of food. And that's why you don't feel good and you lose your appetite and you have this sickness and nausea, is because extra food would burden and stress out your already stressed out system. And the body's trying to clean house. The body's trying to get healthy and figure out a way to create and build this new life in spite of these health issues going on. So what you can do is you can actually support the liver. And that's what we did with Jen with her second pregnancy. We supported her liver, and we did liver herbs that were safe and gentle, and we did teas, and she even did a few enemas. And you know, sometimes there's fear behind that, but there really doesn't need to be. And really focusing on her liver really alleviated a lot of that pain, that discomfort, and we realized that it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, so when I was pregnant with my very first daughter, you know, I started off at the beginning of my first trimester extremely nauseated. I even threw up a few times, and I think there was foods that I just was normally, we were really, you know, make a lot of our own bone broth and different things, and I had to just ixnay all of that because it was just too much smell in the house, and I was just really struggling to find foods that were palatable that I could eat. And it only progressed in the first pregnancy so bad that by the second and third trimester in my first pregnancy, I was actually having skin itching all over my entire body, and I would wake up at night just with this itchy skin. And so they call that, actually they have a medical term for it, cholestasis. And so it basically just means that your body, your liver is
maxed out,
super toxic.
Yep.
And just it's at its wit's end. And so what it's doing is, instead of allowing toxins to come in and burden the body and the organ system and get to the blood in the baby, it's starting to push it out into the skin. And so you know, that was a huge wake-up call for me, because I had kind of thought going into my first pregnancy that I was relatively healthy. And so boom, that pregnancy just exposed a huge weakness in my body, and I was very, very shocked to see how weak and congested my liver was. So after my first daughter, going into my second pregnancy with my second daughter, we worked on my liver. We did some liver cleansing in between pregnancies, but then during my second pregnancy, I definitely worked hard on supporting the liver, and I did eat more of a liver-friendly diet that pregnancy as well. And so this pregnancy, I was kind of curious to see, because you know, we've been really working on this liver thing, and absolutely, I just feel like all the work has just paid off, because this first trimester again has been extremely very minimal nausea. I've been able to eat all the foods that I normally eat that are, you know, we believe very healthy for the body. You know, of course, there's times where I may not necessarily have an appetite for a certain food, but there's always things that I can find to eat in my home. I haven't had any nausea to the point of throwing up or anything like that. And like Vaughn said, you know, during the pregnancies, I've found times where if I did get into a situation where I maybe ate at a restaurant or different places and found myself a few days later feeling the effects of some of those nauseated, kind of really congested feeling, and not wanting that to go any further, I have chosen to do some very gentle lemon warm water enemas, just to kind of cleanse out anything that needs to get out, to expedite that dumping of the liver and the bile to get it going. So
and we've shared that with women, and morning sickness, nausea, headaches will go away when you do an enema. So there's clearly a toxicity issue related to that. So I just want to make that really clear to anybody who's watching this. Morning sickness, nausea, smells, food aversions, cholestasis, itchy skin, these are all signs of liver congestion, unrelated to pregnancy. These are the symptoms that people have when they have liver congestion. So that's exactly what it is. And it's really sad that our medical community, A, doesn't know it, B, doesn't tell people, and women suffer through this. And it could potentially affect the health of your child, because if your body's really sick and congested and you can't eat anything, I mean, that could potentially affect your health, your baby's health, your future children's health. So we need to start educating ourselves about what's happening with the human body. We've lost the understanding of how God designed the human body, and we ignore symptoms, and we take things for granted, and we accept things as normal that are abnormal. So the other thing
can I jump in real quick on that?
Yes.
So just wanting to, talk about, so these are natural alternatives for nausea, working on using gentle herbs to support gentle liver detoxification. We have a couple options that we have at our store. We have a tea that Von's made that's a gentle liver tea.
Liver cleanse. Mm-hmm.
We also have a brand called Wish Garden that offers some, it's a tincture that also has gentle herbs and others safe for pregnancy. And then again, the enemas.
Mm-hmm.
Now, these are all great natural alternatives to what is being offered out there, for moms that are anti-nausea medication. And, I just really want you to understand that there is really very little that isn't going to cross that placental barrier.
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of a facade that we've begun to believe that there is like this bubble around the baby that nothing can get through. And that actually is false.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a study done in 2004 where they took samples from the umbilical cord blood from the baby, so the blood going from mama to the baby, and they found almost 300 known chemicals in the blood. And that's just staggering. And so, yes, the placental barrier is great at blocking out huge main, we know that it can block out HIV and big viruses, but unfortunately a lot of the toxins, man-made synthetic chemicals and drugs, these things can absolutely go right through the placental barrier.
Mm. And remember that all medications are toxic. All pharmaceutical drugs are toxic. If you're taking an anti-nausea medication, it's damaging to the liver. It's the last thing you actually need. It was anti-nausea medication in the 50s that had to be made illegal, because it was causing children to be born deformed. Absolutely. And causing stillbirths and damaging human life. That's our pharmaceutical industry, and it hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And so we just got to be aware that going natural makes sense based on God's creation and design. The other thing we wanted to mention real quick was the fatigue issue. Is a really, really big deal. It's been a big issue for Jen and a lot of women. A lot of women hear about taking iron. Just real quick on anemia. Anemia means lack of oxygen in the red blood cells. And so it's not necessarily an iron deficiency, though commonly iron deficiency is an issue because the liver issue, one of the jobs of the liver is to store minerals. So the liver stores iron and other minerals. And so if the liver has an issue, then you could be iron deficient. And so you might need iron, but the other type of anemia is called pernicious anemia, and that's a B12 deficiency. So there's actually a product by Garden of Life we give to every woman. It's called Healthy Blood, and we're going to do another video just on supplements specifically. But this Healthy Blood product has plant-based iron. It's not the type that causes constipation like the doctor gives you. That's elemental iron that you wouldn't drink a rusty nail to get your iron, right? It should come from plants. That's, again, the problem with getting some of these things from the medical field. But it has B12 and plant-based iron, so it covers both forms of anemia, and a lot of women, it brings them back to life because they do have these issues in their liver, and those nutrients will help them. The other thing with fatigue is a blood flow issue, low blood pressure, and the body's trying to build this blood volume inside the body. And so a lot of women have low blood pressure. Jen struggled with low blood pressure. One of the best things for that is actually sodium in a good form. So a little bit of sea salt and water, putting sea salt on your food. We have these ocean minerals that you can do in diluted amounts that can help build your blood volume. They have a lot of studies related to these ocean minerals and how it benefits pregnancies and builds blood volume and helps having healthy children. And so you really want to look at the low blood pressure issue and the anemia issue related to fatigue, because strengthening the adrenals, building blood volume, and taking iron and B vitamins can really knock out a lot of that fatigue for a lot of women. Because again, there's always a reason. We always talk about cause and effect. You know, if you're nauseous, there's a reason. If you're fatigued, there's a reason. And you don't have to just suffer through it. You have to learn of what's going on in the body and what you can do to correct it.
So the third topic that we really wanted to finish off the video with is just talking about cravings. And you know, this kind of a joke throughout the pregnant
pickles and ice cream?
Moms, pickles, ice
what
cream.
Else?
Oh my goodness, watermelon.
It was turkey chili for her, the first pregnancy anyway.
I mean, you name it. If you didn't, if you hadn't eaten it in 5 years and all of a sudden it looked good, and I mean, it was fair game, right? That's kind of, if you're pregnant, you green pass to just eat whatever you want. And unfortunately, that that's really not how we want to look at our first trimester, especially because the first trimester is the critical part
Yes.
of laying down all of the organ systems for the baby.
Right.
And believe it or not, by the end of the first trimester, you have a really well developed fetus. It looks amazing. It's like a little person with all the arm buds and all the new formations and all the differentiation of the different organ systems. And so it's really amazing what happens in that first trimester. And so the body is really utilizing all of the essential vitamins, amino acids, different nutrients to create this amazing human being. And so cravings, we believe, are often connected to deficiencies in the mom.
Yes.
So if you find yourself craving things that are French fries and fried foods, potato chips, you could be extremely mineral deficient.
Yes.
And because you're needing some sodium, you're needing some natural salt. You know, there's a lot of different things that there's actually a medical term they call pica.
Pica, yeah.
And it's like
Craving dirt.
It's actually when women start craving dirt during pregnancy.
Sometimes children do too.
And children, yeah, because they're actually so mineral deficient. The body looks at dirt and says, "Wow, that looks good." That's a sad place to be. That is where we don't want to be. So we're going to go into some of the, when we do our supplement video for you, we're going to go into some of the essential nutrients that we believe can really benefit a mom, and that if you are consistent with those, hopefully cravings can decrease and you can always choose wisely. So, you know, for me, if I'm having that craving for something salty, I'm definitely going to avoid those deep fried fatty foods, because most of them are deep fried and genetically modified rancid oils that are definitely not good for your liver that is working overtime right now.
Right.
But I'm going to, you know, maybe I'll cut up some sweet potatoes and roast them in olive oil and sea salt, or do something that's going to have that sense of what I'm craving, but I'm going to completely do it in a way that's going to nourish my body and give the nutrients to the baby. So yeah,
Amen.
so we just really hope that this was an encouragement to you. We hope that you continue to follow some of the videos and get tips along the way with your pregnancy, and we hope that this blesses you.
Bye-bye.